Hello, everyone. It's 9 minutes past 9. Today is the 25th of May, 2023. And this is Womb of Wisdom. My name is Quisida Costa Vroom. And I'm coming your way today with a very sobering topic. And I hope by the time we're through with this, we'll be able to have a good reflection and know how we navigate our way forward. Today is African Union Day. In fact, African Union is 60 years today from OAU to AU. I'm looking at the devastation or the devastating situation caused by the perpetrators of colonialism in Africa. And my thinking is where we have to building from the rubbles of colonization by ourselves as though we put ourselves under the rubbles. So I'm looking at the impact of colonialism on Africa. I try to understand, excuse me, what the struggles must have been to our forefathers who experienced all these inhuman attack on their lives, their family livelihood, their community, their country, their culture, their language. And I was trying to reflect on all of that to see if I could see my great-grandfather, my great-great, my ancestors go through what they go through, if I could bring myself to feel, if I could bring myself to see, if I could bring myself to the point where I kind of can have an iota of whatever it was like to be in the darkness part of life, not created by nature, but created by fellow men, to be put in places where there is no light, where there is literally nothing that can make life survive. And another human being with clear intention, put you there with or without knowledge of what could happen to you, obviously not a good one, if any, and still went ahead and did that. And then mutilate people for lack of performance or accountability, maiming, cutting hands, hanging, putting children in cages as you do to an animal in the zoo for the entertainment of children, taking husbands away from family so family grew up without a male figure, is a tall list. I'm trying to bring myself there, but it seems I don't even have the capacity to have a shred of what that minute life would be. Have a few things we can look at here. So it says here are some of the major consequences and challenges resulting from colonialism. Number one, and I'm going to go through for about 60 points. Number one, economic exploitation. Colonial powers extracted Africa's natural resources, often without fair compensation or investment in local infrastructure and development. This contributed to the underdevelopment of African economies and created economic dependencies on the colonizers. Excuse me. Political oppression. Colonial administrations imposed repressive system of governance that suppressed local political institutions and stifled indigenous political participation. These systems often prioritized the interest of the colonizers and marginalized the aspirations of the local populations. 3. Cultural suppression. Indigenous cultures, languages, and traditions were undermined and sometimes even prohibited during the colonial era. This led to the erosion of cultural identities and knowledge systems, creating a loss of heritage and intergenerational trauma. 4. Social disruption. Colonial policies disrupted existing social structures, leading to the breakdown of traditional systems and the introduction of new social hierarchies. Divisions based on ethnicity, tribe, or religion were often reinforced, contributing to ongoing social tensions. 5. Arbitrary borders. European powers drew arbitrary borders without considering pre existing ethnics, linguistics, and cultural boundaries. This resulted in the creation of artificial nation states that sometimes encompassed diverse and historically conflicting groups, contributing to conflict and challenges in achieving national unity. 6. Legacy of violence and conflict. Colonial powers employed violent means to maintain control and suppress resistance, leading to deep rooted conflicts that persisted even after independence. These conflicts continue to pose significant challenges to peace and stability in various parts of Africa. 7. Underinvestment in human capital. Colonial powers often neglected investment in education and healthcare, leading to lower human capital development in African societies. This has had long term consequences for socioeconomic progress and human development indicators. 8. Disrupted agricultural practices. Traditional African agricultural practices were disrupted or replaced with cash crop production for the benefit of the colonizers. This led to the neglect of subsistence farming, food insecurity, and vulnerability to external market fluctuations. It's important to recognize the devastating impact of colonialism and its lasting consequences on Africa's development. By acknowledging these historical injustices, there is an opportunity to promote healing, reconciliation, and more equitable and inclusive approach to development. Number 9, exploitative labor system. Colonial powers often implemented exploitative labor systems such as forced labor and indentured servitude to extract resources and build infrastructure. This led to the exploitation and dehumanization of African laborers, with severe consequences for the well being and socioeconomic development. Number 10, displacement and dispossession. Indigenous populations were often forcibly displaced from their ancestral land to make way for colonial economic activities such as mining, plantations, and infrastructure projects. This led to the loss of livelihood, cultural disruption, and intergenerational trauma. 11. Divisive policies. Colonial powers frequently employed divide and rule tactics, exacerbating ethnic, tribal, and religious divisions among African populations. This manipulation of identity dynamic created long-term, long-lasting social tensions that persist today. 12. Undermining indigenous institutions. Colonial powers undermined and marginalized indigenous political, legal, and economic institutions, replacing them with systems that served colonial interests. This weakened local governance structures and hindered the development of self-sustaining institutions post-independence. 13. Disrupting education system. Colonial powers often neglected or undermined indigenous education system, prioritizing education that served colonial objectives. This resulted in limited access to quality education for African population, hindering human capital development and socioeconomic progress. 14. Health consequences. The introduction of new diseases, inadequate healthcare system, and forced labor practices in colonial settings resulted in health crises and high mortality rates among African populations. The impact of these historical health challenges, can still be felt today in terms of health disparities and vulnerabilities. Number 50. Psychological and cultural trauma. The collective experience of colonization has left deep psychological and cultural scars on African societies. The trauma and loss of identity caused by colonial oppression continue to impact individuals and communities, requiring ongoing effort for healing and cultural revitalization. Recognizing the devastating situation caused by colonialism is crucial for understanding the challenges that Africa faces today. It is essential to work towards redressing historical injustices, promoting inclusive development, fostering social cohesion, and creating policies that empower African nations and people. By addressing the consequences of colonialism, there is an opportunity to build a more equitable and prosperous future for Africa. Number 60. Cultural erasure and Eurocentrism. Colonial powers imposed their own cultural values, norms, and languages while denigrating and suppressing indigenous cultures. This culture erasure contributed to a loss of identity, self-esteem, and cultural diversity, undermining African societies' ability to shape their own narrative and determine their development paths. Number 17. Resource depletion. The intensive extraction of Africa's natural resources by colonial powers often led to environmental degradation and depletion. Exploitative practices such as deforestation, mining, and overexploitation of wildlife resulted in long-term ecological damage and limited the potential for sustainable development. Number 18. Is my camera not on? Why is my camera not on? Why is my camera not on? Why is my camera not on?